Welcome back. Wanted to touch on an article that got sent our direction from the Huffington Post, speaking about Harvard and Yale law schools withdrawing from the new U.S. News ranking system. And they basically were citing that it's a pretty flawed system. And I thought it was a little interesting. We actually did a podcast episode a little bit more in depth about the ranking system and why we don't believe in it. So to see Harvard and Yale have almost, or at least their law schools have a similar opinion, was pretty interesting. I wanted to talk about it a little bit. And the article states that Harvard and Yale officials said Wednesday that they would withdraw their law schools from the U.S. News and World Ranking Report rankings, a seismic shift in the college ranking systems. In separate statements, leaders from the two programs said they believe that the rankings, which are used by students to select schools by the colleges to entice applicants, were unreliable and profoundly flawed. It was pretty interesting because, we've talked about rankings and how we've talked about fame versus fit and how rankings don't necessarily line up with schools that are a good fit for most students. And I think really what Yale and basically Yale or Harvard law schools are really looking at is saying that they're reaching a point where it really undermines what a college should be doing and teaching the kids. It doesn't actually represent positive, feedback. And when you hear, the dean of Yale Law School say that something is profoundly flawed, I would take notice of that. The professor, Yale Law School Dean Heather Gerken said in a statement Wednesday, "We reached a point where the ranking process is undermining the core commitments of the legal profession. As a result, we will no longer participate." And then Harvard Law School Dean John Manning said, "It has become impossible to reconcile our principles and commitments with the methodology and incentives in the U.S. News rankings reflect." So again, you have two pretty well-known, prestigious law programs in the country that are now saying, this system's flawed. And it's something that we've kind of said. So it's nice to hear other people. Maybe they saw our podcast and this is where the announcement came. But I think it's, some of the things that they talk about is that it doesn't always line up. Someone else ranking a school doesn't necessarily make it a good school or not. Having a ranking of 1 or 2 doesn't make it better, especially for a specific student, than a school that ranks 9 or 10. And they get into different things about, it doesn't reflect schools that have need-based aid. It doesn't reflect the ideals of the education and the way that certain classes are taught and the style of education. And just so you know, Yale has been number 1. Yale Law School has been number 1 on this list for a long time. So for them to drop out is very newsworthy. My biggest takeaway from understanding this and hearing this is that, the college game has really changed so much, and there's so much marketing that goes involved, and so many kids use something. And I honestly, I hear more parents that talk about, well, I want to go to a school that's top ranked. And I said, well, top ranked by who? And how are they ranking those? Like, it's not always at face value that just because a school someone ranks very high does not mean that it's the best school for your child. And, in understanding this, I think you have to take information that's given to you with a grain of salt. You have to really do the research. You have to take the time to find schools that are a fit, from the academic side, from the social side, and the financial side. And a lot of times those are misunderstood, all 3 of those areas. So you have to take the time to realize that what someone else's opinion or how someone else ranks a school does not necessarily mean that it's the best school for your child. If it just so happens that the best fit school and your number 1 choice has to be ranked very high on someone's list, so be it. But don't have that be the determining factor, especially when you're seeing some schools that are at the top of the list saying that this system is flawed. Hope you enjoyed this time. If you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay up to date on all the college information that we can give out.